Hello and welcome to my home. My name is Lisa, and today is Thursday, and I am Mysterious Mystical Moments. Now, today I'm going to be talking about a serial killer, Edward Gein, who was also known as the Plainsfield Butcher, the Butcher of Plainsfield, excuse me. Now, this guy made a lot of people have used his inspiration, let's say, not his inspiration, but used his character for their horror movies like Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock's famous Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, also Buffalo Bill and Silence of the Lamb. And you kind of say, wow, how does the Ed Gein connect with that? And because he, like I said, was the butcher of Plainsfield, what he did is, after his mother had passed away, first he killed his brother, and because he wanted to be the only child, and he had killed his brother, and you know, they buried him, and it was just him and his mom then. And then, after his mother had passed away, he completely freaked out. He started killing people. He started grave robbing. When I say grave robbing, I mean he would dig up corpses. Excuse me. He would dig up corpses, and he would use their bones and their flesh and everything to try to reconstruct. Now, he had several people he killed, but he was like a recluse, like a hermit that lived in the house with his dead mother's corpse, because after she died, he never reported it or anything. He just kept her there. And he would rarely go into town, just to get the supplies that he needs and back. Now, what's disgusting is nobody caught him. He lived in a house out in the country, that nobody ever came around except just the mailman and stuff like that. And he really, like I said, he lived in like a hermit type lifestyle. But this one is just, it kind of makes you sick, because he would go and grave rob the cemeteries and dig up bodies to make things out of the bones. He would take their flesh and try to make a flesh suit for his mother, or a flesh suit for himself. That's the inspiration of Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lamb, if you haven't seen it. He was trying to make a flesh suit out of the women he would capture, or the people that he captured. He was a very sick individual, very, very sick individual. And what he would do is he went into town. This is how they caught him. He went into town and to the hardware store to get something, and the clerk actually ended up being missing. So the police came to his house, and of course wanted to start asking him about, since he had been in the store that day, had he seen anything weird or anything. But by the time they got to the steps on his porch, they could smell the smell coming out of it, and what they seen when they walked in was just horrific. Just if you've ever watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they have Grandpa sitting there, and it was his mom sitting there, like on Psycho. His mom sitting at the table, like he actually is still living with her in a flesh suit, trying to keep her, fresh, I guess. And there was lampshades made out of people's faces, and bones, bones that he made furniture with, out of people. There was a big pot with him burning the fat off, dissolving the fat off of the lady he just caught from the hardware store and killed. Um, he was, like cooking her and was going to eat her. Um, Heads and bones and just the smell of rotting flesh everywhere, and that flesh was hanging off of his mom. It was just, I can imagine the sight. I don't mean to gross you out, but it's just like we've seen. I've seen all those movies, and it does depict this man to that. Of course, the police captured him and put him to the state penitentiary, which was very, very weird. And he didn't really get to the state. He didn't get to a jail. He ended up in a mental institution for the rest of his life. Now, see, when he got paroled, or got supposedly, reevaluated years later, they still made him incompetent to stand trial for these murders. So he got off on all these murders for an insanity plea, which I'm sure that he would have. I mean, what normal person would be able to, I have no idea what other person would be able to do this if they weren't insane. So he ended up in the Mental Health Institute in Madison, Wisconsin, in the USA, and he died in August 27th, 1906. So, or no, he was born. I'm sorry, he was born August 27th, 1906, in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Now, he grew up in Wisconsin, like I said. He had odd and end jobs, as he was going throughout life. But he was convicted, they said, of first-degree murder, and then later found legally insane. He was institutionalized in the Mendota Mental Health Institute, and his victims were 2 murders confirmed, seven others suspected, 9 corpses mutilated and desecrated from their graves. And the span of his crimes were like from 1947 to 1957, and they were in Wisconsin. And the date he was apprehended was November 16th, 1957. Now, Gein was initially found unfit to stand trial, like I said, and by 1968 he was judged competent to stand trial, but then he was found guilty of the murder of the Wooden women, but he was also found legally insane and was remanded back to the psychiatric institution. Now, he died in the mental institution from respiratory failure resulting from lung cancer on July the 26th, 1984. So he had spent all that time in a mental institution from 1957 to 1984, at the age of 77. He was buried next to his family in the Plainfield Cemetery. Is now an unmarked grave, so people can't go and see where he's at. But I guess if you looked for his family, you would know he was next to them. So I don't know why they didn't mark it, but I guess they didn't want any vandalism or anything like that. Now, to make someone do that, I mean, a mother's bond to their children, there's so many movies and things like that we get from these horrifying stories, like Ed Gein, who actually did this to people. You can't, when you look at a horror story and stuff, and most of them have a little bit of truth in them. They had to get their storyline from someone. Their idea that people just don't make up things. Stephen King or Alfred Hitchcock or anybody else that makes these horror movies, they have some kind of an idea of things that we, they take from and then they play on it. You make a whole movie of it. Um, and that's what Edward Gein had done. Now, the house that he lived in is torn down, I'm sure, and it's just like I said, a mother loves her child very, very much. But he and his mother, that was the only person he really knew, his mother. And when she passed away, he kind of freaked out and wanted to make her alive again, as much as possible as he could, like with the skin suits and setting her up like a doll. Um, it's sad, but it's also very, very scary. Um, and horrific. So please share some kindness. If you like this is Thursday. So if you like this, please share some kindness and subscribe to my channel. Please share your inner light, because everyone has inner light, and there are so many people out there that need that to get them through the dark.